In this video, we're going to show how to use the SQLite tool interactively. Now, we don't recommend this. The subsequent video is going to show how to use it as a command line tool. That's far better. Writing your SQL query in a editor and then feeding the contents of that file into SQLite. It's much easier. But this video, we're going to use it interactively more as a learning device to get a feel for what a database is like. So as I said in the prior video, we're using the same reform as we used in the prior topic, the elimination in 2022 of the lifestyle relief, moving the cap to 0. We've already done this command at the end of the prior video where we said we wanted the dump output to be a database rather than a CSV file. And what we're going to do is start with this command. This basically says start SQLite interactively using the tax-25-blah-blah-blah.db database. Okay, so I'm going to copy that to the clipboard. I'm going to move over to the command prompt. This is where we left it. I'm sorry, I should say the Anaconda prompt. On operating systems other than Windows, it is the command prompt, but on most of our trainees are on Windows. So what you want to be is at the Anaconda prompt. So this is the way it was at the end of the prior video. We had done a run and we had asked the dump output to be written as an SQLite database file. So now I'm going to copy and paste that file. This is simply saying, remember the SQLite3 program is part of Python. It's been part of Python for more than 15 years. It's a part of the core capabilities of Python. And that's the name of the database that we wrote at the end of the prior video. So when we start up, what we have is SQL. We're at a prompt. This is not the Anaconda prompt anymore. This is, or we're not at our operating system prompt. If we're on Linux or Mac OS, we're at this SQLite prompt. So as it suggests, the first thing you can, there are a bunch of dot commands. The most important one is the help command. And you get, there's a lot of things you can do here. We're not going to dwell on this, but it wouldn't hurt if you want to get used to using this tool to actually read this page. The key thing we want to remember is this. When we're finished, how do we get out? How do we get back to the Anaconda prompt? Well, it turns out we just type .quit. So at the end of that, we're back at the prompt, and we can start querying the database. Now, the first thing to do is remember from the prior video that there is this dot command, the schema. This is what in database lingo means show me the tables. And sorry, can't spell. There we go. So as we saw before briefly, this is we have a minimal dump output, and which just means 5 columns in each one of our rectangular tables. Each one of these tables has somewhat more than 370,000 rows. How do we know that? Well, this is we can do this. So we can create a custom table which has one row and one column, which is how many rows are there in this table. So it turns out in SQL lingo, that means count the number of rows. And you say from what table. And then the key thing is you have to end your SQL prompt with a semicolon. It will just be looking for more instructions unless you type the semicolon. Okay, so there it is. It's 370,280. So another thing we can do is we can sum one of the, like the weights. So this will show us, because the 370,000 are a sample, many of them have weights more than one. So if we do this, we see, oh, that's a big number. What is that? So here, I'm going to have to get this out here, and I'm going to have to, can't read that very well. So it looks to be a lot, around 4.33 million. Not a very convenient number to read. So let me show you how we can get it in a more readable way, okay? First of all, let's scale it into millions. So we're going to multiply this number by 1 e to the minus 6. That's scientific notation for 1 over 1 million. Okay? So when we do this, at least the decimal point makes it easier, but there's way, way too many digits after the decimal point. So let's do something like round that number to, say, how about 3 significant digits. Now, you can't see this on the screen, but what I'm using are the same kinds of up arrow command to get the prior thing, or further another up arrow, and we can keep going back, or if you overshoot, you can do the down arrow, and finally you're back to nothing. And so that works exactly like the Anaconda prompt in that you can recall earlier commands. So for simple tabulations where the select command is not too involved, there's nothing the matter with using this interactive prompt. Now let's add something here. Let's go back and add the you could think of this as the raw count, right? As opposed to the weighted count of filers. So you'll notice that the results are sort of arcane here. So it turns out that there's a better way to do this. One of the dot commands changes the way the select results are displayed. So if we do that and we go back and run this again, we see, oh, it's a little bit more readable here. But count star is still not very informative unless you're a real SQLite maven. So another feature is you can name the results. So this could be filers in millions, right? So it's a little bit easier to read. Okay, so this gives you an idea of what you can do. How would we sum up the the tax revenues? Well, we would sum up the product of the weight and the tax liability. But instead of showing it in millions, probably we want billions. So we do this. Okay, so remember this is for 2025, so we're up to 36 and about 36 3/4 billion ringgit, given the default growth projections that we're using here. Now, this is for current law. If we could just go back and change this for the reform, then we see it's 37.45. So that's the higher number that's caused by the fact that we've eliminated the lifestyle relief. And if you go back and look at the table output back at the command prompt, you'll see that the difference between these two numbers is exactly what was on the bottom row of the table, the third table, the changes table. So that's it. This gives you a little sense of what's involved in using the SQL declarative language. You just specify the kind of table that you want it to tabulate, and the database figures out how to query the tables and give you the results. So in the next video, we're going to actually write a more complex SQL select query in our editor, save it as a file, and then just feed that file into SQLite. So we'll be using SQLite3 as a command line tool, and we'll be doing all this typing in our editor, where it's going to be much easier to write complex multi-line select statements. So that's the end of this video.